Hello, this is video 13 and the last video in a series of videos about making and using paper in Corel Painter 2016. Okay, so I've shown you lots of different ways to make paper, and I'd like to talk a little bit about using paper. Most of you know how to use paper, but I just want to say a few things that I found out from my time teaching that people don't really think about. And let's start. What I've got here is just a picture of an orchid, a little quick drawing that I made. The drawing is on layer 1. I have that locked, and I'm going to be working on layer 2. I've selected real fat chalk, and I've selected that last paper that we made. And I'm just going to paint a little bit around the edge of this flower. And I'm not going to do a lot, just a little bit to sort of give you an idea of how this textured paper can create an interesting design or texture with your image. Now, I can leave the color the same and maybe do something like change the angle of the paper. And if I do that, I'm going to get a different kind of texture added to the texture I've already got. And I can see how it affects it if I go and, let's say, pick up a lighter color and go over the top. Then I can see, the difference in the way the texture works. And this is the part that a lot of people forget, is that in any one particular painting, you can use multiple papers and change the look of the paper multiple times. So I've just increased the scale of the paper. Let's make it kind of yellowy. And we go in and now see I've got another kind of color and different texture going over the top of the paper. Now, I don't have to stay with one texture or one paper. I can switch to another paper. Let's take that one back to its default setting and begin to add some more color. Let's add a little bit of, I'll tell you what, let's add a warmer green and a little darker. All right, so now I can start putting in these sort of dots that I had created. And you can see that the look of the paper is changing considerably. Now, that's just one type or one way to work. What if we change our colors? Our type of brush. I'm going to go to a custom watercolor brush that I made. And I'm going to bring this color down into the blue-greens, and I'll make it fairly dark. And we'll start putting that in. Now, of course, because I'm using watercolor, it set up a new layer. And this may look messy in the way that I'm doing it, but it doesn't really matter because I know what's going to happen with this watercolor brush. It's going to show the texture that we've got. And it's going to give you this sort of runny kind of effect. Now, that's way different from what we had before. And again, this particular brush has a lot of pickup on it. So if I make this surface much larger and it was still running somewhat, when you change the paper, if the watercolor is still running, you'll get a slightly different look to the image. And I'm going to change the color again. I'm going to go to a darker blue. And let's make the brush a little smaller. And I'll go in and just put in a little extra color here. And remember, this brush has pickup involved, so it's going to pick up what was already there, some of the green color that was already there, and change it or affect it. So you see you're getting some movement of what was there. But look at how interesting the image becomes. Now, what's even more fun is you can take both of these layers and drop them. And then I could go to Layer, Lift Canvas to Watercolor Layer. I'm going to bring it down underneath my drawing. And I'm going to pick up another brush that what it does, if you take it up to white, is it's like painting with a wet, clean brush. It's going to pick up the watercolor that's there. So it's not erasing. It looks like it's erasing, but it's not. And you can tell it's not erasing because it's going to push the color up or down and give you kind of a little line where it pushes down to. Make this a little smaller. Bring that on out. Okay, so what I've done here is I've just sort of reclaimed white space. I'm going to go right there and kind of clean that edge up. Okay, that's cool. Now I'm going to add another watercolor layer, and I'm going to change papers again. I'm going to go to one of these watercolor papers. This one's called Coarse Watercolor. It's in your setup, and I've changed the settings to it. And I'm going to pick up a different brush here. And let's pick up, we'll go with a kind of an orange, yellow-orange color, and we'll go kind of light. And I'm going to pause diffusion on this particular brush. Make it a little bit bigger, and we'll come in and just put in some of this color. I'm going to darken it some near the base. And we'll put some over here. Now, most of our light is coming from this end, so I'll leave that pretty light. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We need to, I just wanted to show you how different paper in the same painting can create a very different look. Okay, now I'm going to pick up another color. I'm going to bring in a little bit more of this orangey color. And I'm just going to put it lightly over the top so it stays fairly light, and then come darker here. But I wanted to mix those two colors. Mix this one. I'm not going to mix as much on that one. Mix a little darker here. Let it go down. This is going to be darker because it's kind of picking up the shadow of that center part. And maybe I would put in a little bit. Let's take a kind of a dark brown color and sort of put it in a couple of spots here to give a little more darkness here and help define these areas. And I think we'll leave it at that. That was a little dark, I think. But now what we're going to do is take off pause diffusion and let the watercolor blend and bleed. And what you're seeing here is that I've got a different kind of textured look based on this paper. And so the point is that now that you've made a whole bunch of papers, don't forget that you can use these papers in multiple ways. You can mix your media, use chalk, use oil, use watercolor, use all of the different aspects. And see, now I've just changed to a fat chalk. I'm leaving my paper the way it is because I want to see that texture. And I'm putting some of this red in here. And look at the texture that I'm getting over the top of that. See, so when you use the papers, remember that they can be used, you can use multiple papers with the same image. You have the ability to change the scale, the contrast, the brightness, and you can change the direction or the angle of the paper, which means that you can do quite a lot with papers and your image. All right, so that gives you an idea of how you can work with these. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorials and that they've helped you some. Talk to you again in another set of tutorials sometime later. Bye-bye.